Hey everyone. Ooh, it jumped from like recording 21 to recording 36. And I love 36 because it's also the 9. It also reminds me of a 360-degree circle. And that's a complete circle. So welcome to Adventures in the Astrals. My name is Dee Dee and this is Quantum Acacias channel. I'm so glad that we found each other. And I am definitely under the belief that if you have found this video or any of my videos, that there is definitely something for you here, whether it is specifically for you or for someone around you, or it is an idea that leads you to a deeper truth. I do feel like it's very intentional, us meeting energetically like this. Okay, so we're gonna do part 2 to the video that I did at the end of the video. Like, I'll put the link to part 1 so you can watch that, because I don't know what I'm going to call it just yet. But in that part 1, I was talking about Archangel Zadkiel, and also leader of like a brotherhood, and leaving the matrix and finding a woman who knows how to fly to do that. So this is going to be part 2, where I bring in Saint Germain to the conversation. Now, Saint Germain and I have a very interesting relationship, I would say, to each other, okay? And that I'm going to probably expound on a little bit deeper when I do my first QHHT session story time, okay? That I'm going to have to expand on at another time. But what I will say is that this is going to be a little bit of a story time, and then I'm going to bring it into an adventures in the astrals, okay? So when I first had my spiritual awakening, probably when I first had it, I was really thrown into the depths of shadow work, okay? And I said this in a different video too, but one of the first things that I started getting introduced to after this period of intense shadow work was the Philadelphia experiment and San Francisco and Montauk and Monarch and Drought. That was a whole nother thing. Then I went through the halls of a mentee. It was like a whole thing. No, hold on. Okay, sorry, I had to pause it for a second. Ooh, 8:11. I'm like out in front of the house trying to get these videos done. The kids are still home. They're gonna be home tomorrow for President's Day too. So, but when you're like out in front of the house, they still want to come out and talk. So I'm like, okay. But anyways, let me get back to this. Okay. So anyways, not after, because I'm still kind of in the midst of the Philadelphia experiment and all those things, and really understanding it and why it's been coming up so consistently. But kind of after that initial wave of it, especially with San Francisco and remote viewing and stuff, Stranger Things, that's a whole nother story. The first ascended master that I was introduced to was Saint Germain, okay? Consciously, okay? So that's where we're going to get into this adventure in the Astrals, but it's also kind of a story time. So I became aware of Saint Germain in like 2016, 2017, okay? And it was actually, I became aware of him through Peter Mount Shasta. So there were a lot of different connections going on. And then I ended up finding Peter Mount Shasta. And I remember him specifically talking about his experience on Mount Shasta, which I had not heard of that. So that's why his name sticks in my head, because I was like, Mount Shasta is a very interesting last name. And then I found out that it was Mount Shasta in California. So anyways, where he was talking about where he had been being called by Saint Germain. At this point, I didn't even really know what an ascended master was or anything. I thought that he was literally a saint. I didn't know that like Saint Germain was like his Comme de Saint Germain, or I don't know, that was his last name or whatever. I thought he was like a literal saint. And so he was talking about how like he went to Mount Shasta, and then like Saint Germain like literally physically appeared to him. And that was so interesting to me, because I knew that was like a real thing. Like I had memories of that's a real thing somewhere. And so pretty much after that, that was one of my first experiences of the Astrals, was being dragged off of the couch. I'm not even lying to you. Being dragged off of my mom's couch in the Astrals. And I'm pretty sure that I was astral projecting or whatever it was. And I could not see him. He was invisible to me. I couldn't see him. But I remember him saying, like, you are not doing what you are supposed to be doing in this household right now. And I've always been a firecracker, to be honest with you. And so I heard him say that, and I didn't know who it was, but I was like, and what exactly am I supposed to be doing here? And it was literally like he was grabbing me like by my feet, dragging me off the couch. And I was like, look, this is like borderline, like real deal abusive. So let go of my feet. I can't even see you. And why don't you try to have a conversation? Because obviously you've been trying to talk to me and I haven't been understanding what you're trying to communicate. And so he brought me into my mom's kitchen. And what I was seeing was like this spray bottle, like this purple spray bottle. And inside, he was like, you need to make a tincture. Baby, at this point, I had not even heard of a tincture. I'm like, a tincture? He was like, yes, and you need this stone. And he literally showed me an amethyst crystal. At this point, I did not even know what an amethyst crystal was, but maybe it's that I just didn't remember. But obviously there was a discrepancy in our communication because he seemed to think that I remembered all these things and I did not. So I literally saw this purple crystal and he was like, you need to make a tincture. So he handed it to me. And then like I knew that it had something to do with the spray bottle, but I was just like, what does that even mean? And so he was like, you need to go around and you need to spray the house with this tincture. So I woke up and I was like, I don't even know what this crystal is. I don't even know what a tincture is. And so anyways, I ended up calling this friend and I was like, do you know about purple crystals? And she was like, it's so crazy. I just went to the crystal shop today and I got this purple crystal and it's called amethyst. Maybe it's about amethyst. And so I ended up looking up amethyst, and then that's when I ended up seeing Saint Germain connected to amethyst and the purple ray and all these different things. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I could definitely see it was probably Saint Germain because I'd listened to that Mount Shasta thing. So that was like my first kind of conscious introduction to him. So I'm going to bring it back to the not knowing the connection to Saint Germain. Okay. And I'm also bringing this up because he's been coming up with some type of initiation. I personally saw him in a dream and he was connected to the Omega constellation, which I think that there is an Omega brain wave, an Omega brain state that connects you into your oversoul. And so the next new moon coming up in Pisces is going to be on the day that they say is his birthday, his death day. I'm so sorry. His death day, which is February 27th, and it is supposed to be happening 4:44 p.m. Pacific and Mountain Time. So I think this is kind of accumulating to this very interesting connection to Saint Germain and as a possible person that incarnated as Zadkiel or Sashiel or Sadik, which means the righteous one, the true one, which I also think has a connection in Jafar al-Sadik as well. That's a whole nother story. But okay, so let's get to this other Astrals, okay? So this is actually kind of a story time, okay? So I had my traditional dark night of the soul in April 2023, okay? Every April, I always have something happen. Now, my 8th house is also on Aries, so every time April rolls around, I always have these very intense spiritual but physical, tangible experiences in April. It's just a thing, okay? So I had my awakening April 2023. I usually say it was either the 9th or the 13th. I can't remember exactly which one. And so during that time period, child, during that time period, I had just started this concept. So this time period I'm talking about is like after, because I was going through it for like the first month. So May to like June 2013, I was going through it, honey. Okay. I was going through it. That's a story for another day. But eventually I got to a point where I wasn't going as through it, and then I was starting to look for information. So I went through probably like 3 weeks or something of like trying every single church that I possibly could to figure out what in the world was going on. Like, it was crazy. That's a story for another day. But what I ended up in was actually meditation. So this is when I first started looking at meditation, okay? And I remember I found this woman who was talking about find your spirit guide. Now, at this point, this is the first time I am hearing about a spirit guide, and it's kind of sort of tangent, not exactly to a guardian angel, but it said spirit and guide. So I was like, okay, that sounds like something that could be useful right now. And so she took us through this very simple guided meditation of going through a forest and going over a bridge, okay? So when I did this, I ended up seeing this forest, and what ended up happening was, like, as she was saying it, not at this point, I didn't really think too much of it because I just assumed that it was a part of the meditation. But now I understand why it was starting to transform, okay? Okay, so there's at some point where she was like saying certain things that we should see to get us really into the visualization and everything. And like my visualization started taking like its own turn. So she was saying certain things that we should be seeing and feeling and blah, 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 blah. And like I was with her at a certain point, and then things just start changing, okay? So basically what ended up changing was that I went from just being in a forest to being in like a clearing. And I ended up going over the bridge that she was saying, but that bridge ended up disappearing, okay? And so I ended up back in the clearing instead of going over this bridge she was talking about. But she was talking about a castle, and I did end up going to a castle. Now, so let me rewind because I'm kind of saying it kind of confusingly. So what was happening was that they were bringing me to a very specific castle. Okay, so there was a clearing, and when she said, I want you to imagine a bridge, they cleared out the bridge because the place that I was walking in this clearing, the bridge was not there yet. I didn't get to the bridge yet. So I was just having this kind of nudge and pull to keep walking on this clearing, okay? So eventually I did get to this bridge, okay? And it was kind of in the midst of this place that didn't quite look like a forest anymore. It looked like not even necessarily like a backyard, but it looked like it was on a property somewhere. And so anyway, so I ended up seeing this small bridge, and I walked over it, and then I ended up seeing this castle, okay? So this castle looked very much like a lookout tower, and I feel like I want to say like an Irish lookout tower, but I'm going to tell you which castle it is. So anyway, so I go into this castle, and it's like this gray thing. It looks like a lookout tower. It's circular. It's got that like one window of stone or whatever you can look out in. And the door was very heavy, very thick wood door. So I push on the door and I go inside. I can still hear her talking. She's like, you're going to sit down and you are going to wait for your guide to show up. So I sit down in this castle, and I'm wearing like all white. It's all white in the castle. And so I'm waiting for this guide to show up. And what I start to see is like vibrations in the air. And that was as much as I could do that day. So I ended up coming out of it. So I was just like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Like I went to the castle, and maybe I'll just keep trying this until I finally see someone. So that's exactly what I did, because when I first started meditating, I couldn't even picture anything. Like I didn't even know how to picture something from darkness. But I remember just saying like, okay, Like, I close my eyes and I don't know how to picture something from darkness, but it must be possible. So I just started trying to think of things that were light. So I'd start to try to picture the sun. But I knew that it wasn't just like the overlay kind of transparent image that you have that's not a full thing. Like, I knew like I had to actually see the sun in the darkness. So it took me about 2 or 3 months to get to that point. So then when I started to be able to actually visualize with my eyes closed consciously, that's what I just started doing. I just started picturing this castle and going to this castle and then making sure, oh, you know what? Maybe I could use that castle as an astral temple. Because I've been seeing like the capstone. I've been like driving the capstone in the astral. And that's a fun astral temple because I have an astral temple that's like a black pyramid and it's not a capstone. It's like a full pyramid. It has a top to it. But I'm like, but maybe I could use this castle since it's coming up. But anyways, so over a period in time, I keep going to this castle. And what I start to see is like this Mongolian looking warrior person that's like an apparition, because I've been seeing spirits since I was little. So it's kind of like an apparition of like a person that died that was like a Mongolian kind of warrior, like full regala and everything. And I would just be sitting there chilling, and it was like the spirit was always trying to come and like attack me with its sword. But I would just kind of like wave my hand, and that spiritually, energetically would like push it out of my way. And so eventually I would go to this castle. I would expect to see this like apparition coming at me, and then I would just push him away with my energy. And then he would just go somewhere else. I couldn't see him. So it got so good to the point to where I would go in the castle, I would sit Indian sauce, wait, Indian style, but crisscross applesauce. And so somebody said that, and I was like, oh my gosh, we called it crisscross applesauce too. Anyways, I got so good at it, like, that I would sit down and I would even, like, feel him coming. Like, I could start to feel him coming into the tower before he showed up. And I would just push him with my mind before he even showed up. And the funny thing is, that's exactly when the guru appeared. When I got so good that just, like, the inclination of him coming, I could push him, is when the guru appeared. So one day, just out of these meditations, one day, this guru finally appeared, okay? And it was an Asian guru, and I'm pretty sure it was Confucius. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like super geeked, okay? I'm excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, because to a certain extent, I didn't know, like, I knew that the Mongolian warrior wasn't my guide or whatever. But I didn't know if there was actually anyone that was going to show up. And I wasn't even doing it consistently for someone to show up. I was doing it to like get really good at visualizations and things like that. Now, also there was like energy things that were happening that I wasn't even realizing. But I was really doing it to get good at visualization. So I wasn't even expecting the guru to show up. Okay. So, baby, this day he showed up and I saw him clear as day. So he did not look like the apparition. He looked like me. And he was sitting directly in front of me with his eyes closed. He had very long, flowing, shoulder length, like gray hair. And he was Asian. And I recognized him as Confucius. And so I remember sitting and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're here. I'm like, oh my gosh, I did not think that. Now, at this point, I couldn't exactly remember who Confucius was. Like, I wasn't excited because it was Confucius. I was excited because, like, somebody showed up. Now, I wasn't expecting an Asian man, but I guess the Mongolian warrior should have been, like, a tip-off of something. Okay. So I was so excited. I'm like, oh, my gosh, you're here. And he was stale. Oh, my gosh. And I was just talking about this in, like, a recent dream that I had about the mango that fell from heaven. And he was, I don't know what it is about the male energies. They can be very stale. And so he was stale. He didn't open his eyes or anything. And I took that as like we really knew each other. So I didn't really trip like, you're not going to say hey to me. But I was like, okay, we must really know each other. We must be really comfortable because he's really being disrespectful. But I'm going to let it slide though, because maybe he's having a day. And so he tells me, he's like, you're going to get really good at that to the point to where you're not going to be able to see him anymore. And I was like, isn't that the point? Like, every time he shows up, he's always trying to, like, slash me with his sword. He's always coming in really aggressive. Like, isn't that the point? And he was like, do you think that's the point? And I'm like, I guess since you're asking it like that, I guess that's not the point. So please enlighten me. And so he said, well, if he's that aggressive towards you, and you are patient with him, do you think that he's going to be that aggressive with other people? And I was like, yeah, I'm sure. And he's like, and what's going to happen if you don't have an eye on him? And I'm like, well, I don't know where he's going to be. And he was like, exactly. And he was like, I'm going to tell you that this is your brother, and you should keep an eye on him and not push him out, because you are his keeper. And if you keep pushing him away, then you are not going to know where he is to be able to help him get out of this state. And when he said that, my heart dropped, because I was like, you've been here the whole time and you purposely have not been showing yourself because you want to teach a lesson about this brother. Now, do I feel like, of course I felt like, you could have just said this, dude. You could have just said this, but I also do understand that, like the energy and sensing energy and being able to push energy and pull energy and send energy away was also a part of the relearning process. And so I was like, okay, so what do you think that I should do in this situation? Now, sometimes I ask questions and it's not because I have like literally no idea or no clue, but I like to see someone's perspective, especially when they are in a teaching mode. You can see like where their kind of defaults are. And so it's not that I had like no clue what to do or how to handle the situation, but he obviously was making it a point that he was separating that what he thought I should do was different than what I actually should do. And I'm perfectly fine with that, because I'm not, worried about who's right or wrong. I want to make sure that we get to this common goal, that it seems like we both have agreed that we have a common goal, and I want to make sure that we get there. And so if you feel like your way is a better way, then I'm open to that. And so he was letting me know that this brother was incarnated on earth and that I should go and incarnate. Child. And this is where, and I'm going to bring Saint Germain into it, okay? This is where impulsive Didi, okay? So I was like, fine. And he was like, okay. So he snapped his finger. I literally dropped down from this castle into the atmosphere of the Milky Way. I picked my parents and I was like, okay, I'm going to come into contact with this brother. And when I do, I am going to help him out. Now, where Saint Germain comes in at this point, and then I'll explain more about it later, is that it took me about 4 or 5 years to find this castle. And when I say find it, I wasn't even looking for it. I happened upon it when I started looking into Saint Germain. Okay, I started looking into Saint Germain from a whole bunch of different synchronicities and things like that. And the interesting thing is that they talked about Saint Germain's time at Louisenland. Baby. And the crazy part is, before I found Louisenland, I was seeing all of these connections to Nassau and Hesse, Hesse. And if you read into Louisenland, it was a Freemason paradise from Karl van Hessen Castle. And this is where they said that Saint Germain spent his last time on earth, was at this Louisenland tower that was a part of this Freemason oasis at this person's estate in Germany. And when I saw it, I almost passed out because it was exactly the tower, exactly the bridge that I had walked on and found Confucius. It was exactly that. And I was just looking up Saint Germain because he's been coming up. And like I said, I didn't actually know that his death date was February 27th. But when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is the new moon. This is some type of initiation of some type. But I was actually researching and looking down, and they have this list on Wikipedia. And I don't know whether it's true or not, but I'm sure over the year or so, I'll probably get some information on it. But it actually says this, and I'm going to read it because I hadn't actually seen this before. So Saint Germain, if you don't know, he's also considered to be a vampire. He has a vampire shop in New Orleans where they have like something dedicated to him, saying that like he have visited New Orleans and was a part of some of the festivities there, and I think the 1700s possibly. So anyways, yeah, I want to read this really quickly. Where is the Wikipedia page? Because I specifically want to read it from the Wikipedia page. Okay. Really? Where's the Wikipedia page, child? Okay. I like, and hold on. We could do it. Wikipedia, child. Yeah, Zadkiel. Yeah. No, I want to Saint Germain's page. It's not on Zadkiel's page. Yeah, okay, here it is. So it talks about his incarnations. Okay. What? The Count's birth and background remain obscure. Nothing is known with certainty of his origins. Towards the end of his life, he claimed to be the son of Francis II Rakowski, the Prince of Transylvania. While without hard evidence, this would account for his wealth and evident fine education. Oh, the Habsburgs, too. I'm going to have to go back and read this stuff. Legacy? Where is it? Okay. Now, where is it? Because I just saw it, child. Okay. There's something really specific that I wanted to read about him as a possible incarnation of Zadkiel. And that Zadkiel was supposed to be like a priest of Atlantis at some point. Let me see. Okay, here it is. High priest in the civilization of Atlantis 13,000 years ago, serving in the order of Lord Zadkiel in the Temple of Purification located in an Atlantean colony that had been sent out from the main island of Atlantis that had been established on the island now called Cuba. Okay, so serving in order of the Lord Zadkiel. Now, I feel like that is really significant because when I think about Zadkiel, it definitely brings to mind Melchizedek's, right? Melchizedek could be Malik, which is king, and then Zedek or Zadok or Sadek, right? Which is also Sadik, Sadiq, Sadik, but also Sadok, Sedek, Zedek, Zadok, Zadok, which I ultimately think comes back to the god of dreams, Zakar. Okay, Zakar, who was the one after Marduk talked about what humans were going to do after he told them about their fortune and their lots. After the gods decided on what was going to be the fate for the year, Zakar would come to people in dreams and let them know what their fortune was for the year. So that's what I ultimately think that comes down to. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. I'm sending you guys lots of hugs, lots of love. Make sure